Morning, everyone. A morning to those who are watching the proceedings via the webcast. Can I welcome you all to this full meeting of Salford City Council. Forgot it all. I've been practicing all morning. Let's try that again, shall we? And that is, sorry, no signing today. So, I do apologise, and I'm sure that when we upload the stream, that will be fixed. So with that, can I ask you to remain standing, and can I ask Father Martin Collins of the parish of St John Paul II, Holy Cross, Patricroft, and St Mary Eccles to lead us in prayer.
Good morning, and let us pray. Lord, we come before you in prayer as we embark upon the work of a new day. We ask your blessing upon all who serve in this chamber and upon all the leaders and officers of the council. And we give special thanks today for the service and dedication to duty of Councillor John Mullen, the ceremonial mayor of this city, and of his Lady Mayoress, as they complete their terms of office. We pray for all the people of Salford in this time of economic challenge and world instability. Our minds and hearts are drawn to the people of Ukraine and those caught up in the conflict there. But here in our own city too, people fear where the conflict might lead and feel the effects of international sanctions as they strive to support their families. We bring them all before you, Lord, and pray that the decisions made here by this council will help to bring them a sense of security and the knowledge that people care to make a difference for them. We pray for all our council workers too, and for all who seek to make this great city a place where people can find safety, security, and joy in their lives. In the midst of a troubled world, we see so much to give us hope. We give thanks for everything that gives life, everything that motivates us to move forward day by day and to face all the challenges of these difficult times, knowing that every true good is worthy of our pursuit and is made possible, Lord, by your grace. We give thanks for all the good which continues to be achieved through the dedication and commitment of all who serve on this council and through their careful and wise discernment. Guide, Lord, the decisions of this day. Inspire your servants and light up the way ahead with hope and with confidence. Amen.
Thank you, Father Collins. I know you've got mass to attend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Should be my pastor this year. Please be seated. I'm ready for the main meeting. Cool. I think someone's lowered my chair. I can barely see over the top. Item 1. I have not been notified of any special items today, but ahead of item 9, can I just take a moment to welcome our newly elected members to the chambers, and welcome back those that have been re-elected, and on behalf of the city, thank those that have not been re-elected for their service to the city. Item 2, can we have the apologies for today's meeting, please?
Yes, I received apologies from councillors Boshall, Brooks, Karen Garrido, Humphreys, Lancaster, Sharp, Turner, Wayne, Ward, Warren and Youd.
Thank you for that. Councillor Baylor.
Yeah, can we add Councillor Ray Mashty, who's had to attend an emergency governors meeting?
Thank you for that. I really need to get this chair sorted out. I can't see anyone. Well, there you are, Councillor August. Hello.
Can we add Councillor McCusker as well, please?
Right. Item 3, declarations of interest. Do any members have any personal, prejudicial or disclosable pecuniary interest that they need to declare at this meeting? In which case, can I ask those members to declare them, explain the nature of the interest and to which specific agenda item it relates? Declarations should be specific, relevant and not merely a general indication that you're a membership of a particular body. Item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of March. Are the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 16th of March 2022 approved as a correct record? Councillor Fletcher and seconded by Councillor Warmson. Item 5, receipt of petitions or communications. Councillor Robin Garrido. Thank you for that, Councillor Greeno. Okay, thank you. Can I remind members to just press the microphone button in front of you before you speak, otherwise the camera will not move to you and so may not have been picked up that, Councillor Greeno, apologies. No, you're all right. Yeah, has been received and so noted, thank you. Item 6 is the notification and appointments of Cabinet 2022-2023. The City Mayor is asked to present this report which details recent amendments to his mayoral team, after which I will permit members to ask questions. City Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I move this report, and obviously this is for noting. In doing so, I'd like to pay thanks and tribute to the service of previous members of the mayoral team in Councillors Linden, Jones, previous Councillor John Walsh, and also Councillor Bailey. And I also welcome to the mayoral team the new appointments in Councillor Teresa Pepper, Councillor having a problem with technology here. Also, with regards to the transport brief, you've probably noticed that there has been some slight amendments to the structure of the mayoral team. You'll see in the outside body paper, which we'll come on to in a moment, Councillor Roger Jones will continue to be the appointment from Salford City Council to the Greater Manchester Transport Committee, and he'll be working with the lead member, Councillor Mike McCusker, in terms of the mayoral team representative on all matters pertaining to transport. So I hereby move this report. It is here for noting. I'm happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions? No. Any comments? Thank you. So noted. Item 7 is the membership of committees and panels. including the appointment of chairs and deputy chairs for the municipal year 2022-2023. Again, can I ask the City Mayor to present this report, which details the membership of the committees, panels for the municipal year 2022-2023, after which, again, I will ask members if they want to ask any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, this report relates to the membership of committees and panels and the appointments of chairs and deputy chairs for the municipal year 2022-23. Before drawing colleagues' attention to the recommendations in the report, I would like to move some amendments to this report. One of them relates to the Council Agenda Setting Committee. Councillor Mullen, following the Labour Group Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, so we do need to fill that vacancy. It's a Labour vacancy with another member, so we will be bringing that back to full council in due course, so I'm just drawing your attention to that. In terms of outside bodies as well, it's usual practice that the chair of the Health Scrutiny Committee within the City Council also takes on the role of Greater Manchester Health Scrutiny. That now is Councillor Morris, as you'll see from the report before Council today. So we do need to amend that because in this report it reflects that it's Councillor Tanya Birch. So we just need to make that change. There will also be other further changes over the course of the municipal year with regards to outside bodies that we will need to fill, as there has been some minor changes recently. So in drawing your attention to the recommendations in light of those minor amendments, the recommendations are to approve the allocation of committee places for politically balanced committees and panels and to appoint the membership of those committees and panels as set out in Appendix 1, and also to approve the membership of other council committees and panels as set out in Appendix 2. I move the recommendations before council today. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you. Any questions? No. Councillor Greedo.
Sorry, were you doing the outside bodies at the same time then? No, just the...
Thank you. Can I have somebody to second, please? Councillor Warmson, thank you. So, having it moved and second, can I ask members of the council to agree that report? All right. Item 8 is the appointment of representatives to outside bodies. The City Mayor is asked to present this report, which details the appointment of representatives to outside bodies for the municipal year of 2022-2023, after which I will permit members to ask questions. City Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, the appointment of outside bodies does have a relationship with the appointment to committees, as already outlined. So just drawing your attention to those amendments again that are pertinent to this report, we will need to change the appointment to Greater Manchester Health Scrutiny Committee from Councillor Birch to Councillor Morris, and there is anticipated to be further changes throughout the municipal year with regards to the appointment to outside bodies. So this report concerns obviously the appointment for 22-23. In terms of the recommendations before Council, there are 3 of them. The first is to agree the GMCA appointments and nominations as listed in Appendix 1. Secondly, to note the AGMA nominations as listed in Appendix 1, and to note the appointment of outside bodies, non-AGMA appointments as listed in Appendix 2. I move the recommendations before Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, City Mayor. Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Warmson, you're busy today? Councillor Greedo, question.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask the City Mayor whether he is happy that on all of these outside bodies there is a gender balance? Because looking through, it appears that there's not an awful lot of balance there, and I wonder whether this is something he's considered and if not, maybe something we need to look at in future. I do need to move a member to go on to one of the non-AGRA appointments. Do you want me to do it at this stage or after you've dealt with the questions?
Yeah, do you want to move it?
Yeah, okay. So the one in particular, in fact, is on the non-AGRA appointments, number 1, Booth Charities. I'd like to add the name of Councillor Karen Garrido.
You have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Watt.
Accept that amendment without debate.
Okay. Members of the council, are you happy to accept that membership without debate? Yeah, thank you. So having been moved and seconded, oh, sorry, back to the City Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just by way of responding to the question that was raised around gender balance, gender balance is something I try to take seriously, and as I'm sure colleagues can appreciate, some of these appointments are directly related to the posts that individuals hold at the end of the day. So having discretion over some of that activity is somewhat limited. I'd like to think if you look at the mayoral team for this next municipal year, you will see a gender balance there, but absolutely continue to work towards in light of also people's individual commitments to work and what they can actually do over and above what they're expected to do here on Salford City Council. So it is a balancing act, and absolutely we do need to take gender balance seriously. I'd probably go one step further in saying we actually need to take all of the protected characteristics in the Equalities Act seriously when it comes to actually formulating committees, formulating teams, and also, with regards specifically to this report, outside bodies. And as we know, there are many protected characteristics. Gender is only one of those. Thank you, Councillor Guido.
Thank you. Having been moved and seconded, are members of the council happy to agree that report? Thank you. Item 9 is the results of the local elections on the 5th of May 2022. Can I ask the City Solicitor to present this report, which details the results of the recent Salford City local and mayoral elections, after which I will permit members to ask questions.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm struggling with the technology. We'll get used to it soon. Members, this report is for information only. It sets out the results of the elections that took place on Thursday, the 5th of May 2022. 20 members were elected and their term of office is for 4 years, expiring in 2026. The appendix sets out the names of those members and the wards. Thank you.
Any questions? Any comments? Councillor Guido.
It's been so long since we've been in the chambers there. If you'd allow me just to say a few words, and firstly, I think it would be remiss of us, in fact, if we didn't thank the returning officer, Tom Stannard, all the election staff led by Sarah Bennett, the presiding officers at polling stations, the counting staff, and last but not least, our staff, our candidates, and the police, in fact, for protecting everyone involved and for ensuring that we have a safe and a good democratic process which is safeguarded. I'd like to thank in particular our candidate for Worsley Westwood Park, and we were very pleased that Councillor Anna Keeley did gain a seat this year and put Worsley back where we believe it belongs. And I'm sure that this will be a journey that we are starting where we will continue to represent the local community for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guido. City Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to echo the comments made by Councillor Garrido as well in terms of the sterling job undertaken by officers of the City Council in running the elections in what have been clearly challenging circumstances as we recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. So my congratulations goes to the returning officer, Tom Stannard, and all of his senior members of staff and everyone involved in those elections. And obviously, I welcome every member. Really looking forward to working with you all in the interests of the people of Salford and our communities. Thank you very much.
Councillor Baylor.
Thanks. Is my mic on? Yeah. It's just a quick one, and I think all major parties in here should note, whilst it was a mixed set of elections for Labour, in my opinion, one of the best results on the night was the result in Walkden North. And I think every major political party represented here has a responsibility to take seriously the threat of fascism on the streets of Salford. We beat back Britain First, and we'll beat back Britain First again next year, and I hope other major parties will join us in doing so. Thank you.
Councillor Saunders.
Thanks. Whilst fully agreeing with Councillor Bailey, I do have to express some concern that Britain First achieved over 500 votes in Walkden North, so that's a bit worrying.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. Okay, that report then is so noted, and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is quite a pleasant one. It's item 10, Councillor Robin Greedo, 20 years long service award. And it is now my pleasure to present to Councillor Robin Greedo a long service award in recognition of his 20 years contribution to the City Council and the residents of Salford. And after that, I will allow him to make a response. So if you would care to join me, I think we've got the award in the corner. So thank you very much, Councillor Greedo, for all your years of service. And here is a little plaque to remember it, and of course, a little keepsake from the sitter. And if you'd like to say a few words, thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do regard this as a great honour to actually serve as a councillor, whether it be for 1 year or whether it be for 20 years. And I might say, in fact, that even after 22 years, I'm still going. I'd just like to share with you just a little bit about the journey, and not very much, I promise. But I was first elected to the council in 1975 as one of the first intake of the new council following reorganisation. And the ward I stood for, in fact, and I can share these secrets now because it's a long time ago, my party said, oh, this is a war we never win. And I said, well, that's silly, we should fight every ward. And this particular ward, in fact, we were in 3rd place. So the ward I refer to, in fact, is Liddyshore and Central. And if you think some of the boundaries that we've got for the boundary review last year are funny, then in fact we should look at the boundaries for Liddyshore and Central ward as it was then. Because it stretched, in fact, from Row Green and Walkden Road. It carried on across the East Lancs. On the right-hand side of Walkden Road, it went right the way up to the Birch Road estate. It carried on up the A6 and across the A6. This included the Whittle Street estate. You then turn right and you continue down the A6 under the motorway, and it included the Wardley estate. So I think that must actually win the prize for the most illogical ward. But I'm pleased to say that having started off in 3rd place, I did actually gain the seat, in fact, in that particular time from the Liberal Dems, who actually hoped to win it. And the issue and in fact I won that with a 350 majority, I have to say. And the issue, in fact, that we won that seat on, and which has stayed with me for all the time I've been on the council, and for all the time I've been involved with the community, it was to save the Greenbelt. And it was to save the Greenbelt being built on at Liddyshore and Sandhole. And I'm pleased to say that by and large, we succeeded in winning the public inquiry after that election, and we succeeded by and large in actually keeping it free. That's my overriding commitment to the residents. I regard the commitment to residents as being the utmost responsibility of any councillor. Council duties, I think, come just after that, but representing the community. And I thank all those who have supported me over those years, not being continuous service, but it's been a long time. I thank them for their support. And I thank also all the council members who have supported me. I'm sorry, in fact, that Councillor, I don't think he's here actually, Councillor Lancaster. No, I'm sorry that David Lancaster's not here, because I served with him whilst he was chairman of the Housing Committee, and I have to say that I have great respect for him and for the principles that he holds. I don't agree with them. I never agreed with him when I was on the Housing Committee. In fact, we had many arguments, but we've stayed friends throughout, and I think it's that sort of camaraderie sometimes. It's a little bit missing nowadays, and I just hope that that will start to come back a little more, that we talk to each other more, and we can be on better terms with each other, and I think that will make for better governance of our city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations.
Item 12 is the statement of the elected City Mayor. Can I ask the City Mayor to present his statement to the Council?
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to all of you, members of the Council. First of all, I'd like to pay tribute to Mary Monson, who sadly passed away recently. And I know members of this council will join me in passing our thoughts and prayers to Mary's friends and family. Mary was recognised as one of the northwest of England's most for young people. Mary represented many young people who were often poor and unaccompanied by a parent or guardian, and her pioneering approach and dedication to protecting vulnerable children should be recognised in this council chamber today. Mary's legacy of changing the way in which young people are supported in the legal system will continue throughout her legal practice. Also, I'd like to think about Councillor Karen Garrido today, and colleagues will know that Councillor Garrido has recently had surgery, and my thoughts and prayers continue to be with Councillor Karen Garrido, and I wish her a speedy recovery. And I know many members of this chamber have also made their thoughts and prayers known to Karen at this time. So welcome, councillors, to our first meeting in the Civic Centre since lockdown began at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. So much water has passed under the bridge since that time. The world, in many respects, is now an unfamiliar place to many of us. COVID has had a lasting and possibly permanent impact on our society and on a way of working. And it's unlikely that this council building itself will ever kind of revert back to that traditional 9-to-5 way of working, as flexible and home working increasingly becomes the norm for office work environments across the UK. But also the world has fundamentally changed. The impact of COVID on the UK's already faltering economy has been significant. And the world, as we know, teeters on the brink of another economic slowdown. War continues in the continent of Europe, with Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And thanks to everyone in the city of Salford and Greater Manchester for supporting the humanitarian efforts to date. Continuing that support will be absolutely integral moving forwards. These are, in many respects, really worrying times. So despite the familiarity of the council chamber, I think our work as community representatives and elected representatives has never actually been more important. So congratulations to everyone who's been elected to join the council chamber and the city council here in Salford, especially those who are joining us for the first time. And let us now reflect a little bit on the recent election results from the beginning of this month. Nationally, we know that the elections were a catastrophe for the Conservative Party, which lost control of 11 councils and 336 councillors. The results are a huge repudiation of both the Conservative Party and the leader in Boris Johnson, whose promise for levelling up and a strong post-Brexit economy are floundering amidst rising inequality, the cost of living crisis, and huge government waste during the COVID-19 pandemic. And that includes the billions spent on crony contracts. Taken against these devastating national losses, the Conservatives in Salford may well feel they had a decent night, regaining the formerly safe seat of Worsley. It was a fair fight, and I'd like to congratulate Adam Keeley on his hard-fought victory against Labour's incumbent Tony Davis. But I'd also like to remind the Tories that with Councillor Garrido's seat up next year, that 153 votes in one of the formerly safest Tory seats in the city is a very narrow margin of victory. Taken alongside, obviously, the independent councillor Walter's comfortable retention of his seat in Kersal and another uncomfortably close result in Boothstown. I think it's safe to say a new dawn has broken for the Conservative Party in the city of Salford. There are no safe seats for Salford Conservatives anymore. And Salford Labour will work hard to prove to our residents and our communities that it is the Labour Party that has the vision, the passion, and importantly, the capability to deliver on the things that matter. For Salford Labour, beginning from a historical high point of holding 52 out of the 60 seats on this council, the night inevitably was more difficult. And in many areas, we continue to deliver high levels of support, increasing the Labour vote in some of our wards, including retaining the seat in Walkden North and seeing off the fascists and Britain First. I'd also like particularly to congratulate Councillor Nathaniel Tete in Eccles for achieving the highest vote of any councillor in the city with 1,964 votes. But we did concede to the Liberal Democrats in both Salford Quays and Odsal, in addition to the loss in Worsley. These losses should be taken as a significant moment of learning for Salford Labour and a moment of reflection and introspection. I'd like to congratulate both councillors Warner and Twells on a well-fought campaign. But it's our job as a Labour Party and a Labour team on this City Council to make sure that the truth of the matter is made clear to our residents. For example, by highlighting that so many of the issues both Conservatives and Liberal Democrats campaign on in our city are as a direct consequence of the Tory Lib Dem coalition government in 2010. What I'm specifically talking about, colleagues, is the £232 million that's been taken out of our budget since 2010-11, with a government in those early years propped up by the Liberal Democrats. 53% of core funding has been taken out of the 18th poorest local authority in the entire country. Colleagues, that is immoral, that is scandalous, and to pretend otherwise is disingenuine. The imposition of austerity and its attacks on local government and on the livelihoods of working people is as a consequence of the Conservative Party and, in those early years, the Liberal Democrat Party. Our counter to these campaigns, quite simply, is that we need to learn from what happened here, and we won't make the same mistake twice. So moving back to national matters, in an evidently widely anticipated by the local government anoraks like ourselves, the government the other week introduced the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill. The bill has some good aspects, in my opinion. It appears for the first time since 2010 that the government has recognised the limits of its policy of removing restrictions for developers and allowing the market to entirely dictate the quality and type of home that is constructed. Many of the more radical proposals for the one-size-fits-all formula to decide planning permissions promised by Robert Jenrick have seemingly been ditched, meaning that local authorities and communities will still retain a degree, and I don't overemphasise, a degree of influence over developments which impact our communities and localities. Local democracy, you could say, has dodged a bullet, though it should be shocking that as a country we were ever even considering designs put forward by Robert Jenrick. And proposals for the creation of an infrastructure levy to replace Section 106 at least recognises the pitfalls and the limitations of negotiated 106 payments and the limitations of the National Planning Policy Framework, in which, as we all know in this chamber, a starting assumption is that a developer has a right to make at least 20% profit before they have any obligation to contribute to infrastructure or affordable housing, along with the primacy of viability concerns over our local policy requirements, all of which will be significantly under pressure now, given the current inflationary crisis this country and economy is facing. But there's still a lot of detail missing within the bill, and as it stands, government plans to build 300,000 homes a year by the mid-2020s. This all now seems to be up in the air, reading the press and the media, no longer a priority for the Secretary of State, Michael Gove, who insists that quality should come before quantity. The infrastructure levy as well appears to be based on the London model, and if applied elsewhere in its current form, would simply make development unviable in many areas of the country. Whilst developers may be pushed out of business in many areas of the country on the one hand, objectively assessed housing need figures based around the Tory manifesto commitment to build 300,000 homes per year by the mid-2020s is still in place, meaning local authorities must still provide enough land to cater for these homes, which, as we all know, is weighted towards urban conurbations in the country, such as here in Greater Manchester. The reforms also fail entirely to deal with one of the central problems facing the UK's housing market, the delivery of truly affordable homes. Why? Because it fails to deliver with regards to the speculation on land. There is nothing in the bill about land value capture, land banking, or ensuring that landowners do not receive a huge share of the proceeds of development simply by acquiring permission to build, inevitably inflating the costs of development. And if introduced in the current form tomorrow, these reforms would likely create a deadlock in the housing market. More legislation will inevitably be required to make any of this work. And all of this really is a familiar story. For those of us who've sat in this chamber for any number of years, government often takes a high-handed approach to policy without real consideration for the practicalities of rolling it out. It's a story we knew on the ground all too well through the COVID pandemic. It's a story we are all too familiar with when it comes to the Treasury and financing for local government, with the British government being one of the most centralised political systems in the developed world, with extremely very little regional autonomy in government. The wealth of expertise and experience possessed within local government is routinely overlooked and underplayed by lofty national government with no real idea of reality on the ground. But despite these challenges, as ever in Salford, we continue to plough ahead. And I'm very pleased to report that major refurbishment work to Buell Hill Mansion should start by the end of this calendar year, and the building should be back in use by 2023. And I really enjoyed visiting the mansion building recently with Councillor Kelly to see the works undertaken thus far and to properly explore the great asset and jewel in the crown of the city of Salford. It was also great to hear recently that some of our new council houses on Brassington Avenue in Odsal have recently been formally handed over to the City Council. And I'm also looking forward to visiting those properties in the very near future. It's also hugely exciting for me to announce that within 12 months, we should be completing our new solar farm in Little Hulton and our hydroelectric dam in Charlestown as well. Huge contributions to the zero carbon commitments that this City Council has made. And I'm also looking forward to being involved in the formal opening of, is it Swinton or is it Monton Greenway? I know there's a bit of a debate there. On the 11th of June. And, you know, the off-road walking and cycling is a fantastic asset. And I've already seen residents and communities celebrating and praising those investments, especially the installation of public art as well, which celebrates our proud industrial history and past. We've also got more walking and cycling infrastructure planned for the not too distant future, which will hopefully contribute to continuing our record of being the greenest local authority in the Northwest and the most sustainable local authority in England and Wales, as previously declared by Friends of the Earth and the Centre for Thriving Places. There's so much happening in our great city, but I'll probably finish by highlighting that today is the 1-year anniversary since the opening of RHS Bridgwater. Another great asset in our city, which has already overachieved its projected outcomes, delivering over 18,000 free tickets to Salford residents on free Tuesdays, welcoming nearly 500,000 visitors to the garden in its first year, creating 162 jobs with 32 more planned in this year, engaging 539 young people and 425 local people on community outreach projects and much, much more. But importantly, the success of RHS Bridgwater is also down to the spirit of Salford, with 147 volunteers across 13 different roles, helping to deliver these fantastic achievements in the Garden's first year. So in this next municipal year, I'm really looking forward to working with you all to build on our successes so far, whilst representing and serving the people of our great city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, City Mayor. A number of members have indicated, so Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, City Mayor. First of all, can I congratulate you on the gender balance within your executive? As you know, it's something that's always been very dear to my heart. I was brought up in a household of women. I have 8 daughters, and I see the direct impact of the underrepresentation of women. We can see now we've got some formidable women now on the cabinet, and well done to them. Not least my new colleague, Teresa Pepper, who I know will give you some serious challenge, but friendly challenge undoubtedly, and I know what an incredible person she is, what a talented lady she is. Secondly, just thank you for mentioning Mary Monson. You know, this is something that's very important, but very often in the media comes below the radar, the importance of representation, legal representation for our young people. It was not, you know, she made a massive difference during the 70s and 80s. She didn't just represent young people, she went out and found young people that needed her support, because she knew that those young people just had no idea where to start, and that was something exceptional. It is still, as I'm sure you are aware, a massive issue today. If anybody doesn't follow The Secret Barrister and read it, well, I suggest you do, because, you know, you will see what a devastating state certainly our criminal justice system is in, and you know, we need to understand what is happening with our young people in Salford within the criminal justice system. So I would encourage you to follow his work. I do have a question, and that is around, I noticed this morning, literally hot off the press, there was an article in the news this morning about threats to school meals. It's absolutely devastating with the cost of living crisis that young people potentially could be served smaller meals, lower quality meals, because of the cost impacts on schools. That would be absolutely devastating for our young people, already struggling, many of them, parents to feed those young children. It's something that I feel we should look very closely at. I would just ask that I know a lot of our meals are provided by Citywide. Can I ask that we investigate, talk to them, find out how they are coping with this, the cost of living crisis, and making sure our children are well fed. But also, if it's possible, to feed back to this council and let us know as well. Thank you very much.
Just turn off your mic, Councillor. Oh, thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a few comments, if I may, on the Mayor's statement, and I would also concur with what my colleague, Councillor Lewis, has said about Mary Monson. A colleague of ours in this chamber very many years ago, Councillor Basil Herwold, which some of you will probably know, or you know his family in the Broughton and Kersal area, he used to mention the work that Mary Monson was doing all those very many years ago. And I would also highly recommend that you read The Secret Barrister. It's a very, very good read indeed. I got it as a gift from somebody, not the odd gift I only get from a friend of mine. And it is a very good read, very entertaining, and I think you should get a copy. Just want to comment on a few things that the Mayor has said. In particular, I'm delighted that you mentioned about the crony capitalism and the crony contracts, which were awarded by government, and then simply didn't monitor how those contracts were being implemented. And there are now some investigations taking place as a result of those contracts not being performed properly. Some of them actually reaching into the House of Lords, I understand. So I think there's a lot to play out on this particular thing. The government is also making very, very many claims and boasts about the bounce back of the economy, and it has bounced back, and clearly that's good, and we very much welcome it. But it was almost inevitable that it would bounce back because the economy was frozen for almost 2 years. So it was almost inevitable that there would be more economic activity and therefore the economy would grow. However, it isn't true to say, as the government seems to be claiming, that there are more people in employment ever. That's not the case. The latest figure I've seen is that there's about 75.5% in employment. Now that's good, clearly that's good. But the figure before the pandemic, the pre-pandemic figure that I've seen, is 76.6%, fully 1% above that. In addition to that, around 500,000 people have actually left the workplace. They've just given up pretty much. And I think the pandemic actually has changed people's attitudes towards work and so on. I think there's more to life than just working. And of course, thousands of Europeans, East Europeans, have left our economy because of a combination of both Brexit and the pandemic, and they've not returned. We learned this morning that inflation has now hit 9%. 9%. The highest in decades. And the cost of living crisis is the worst in my living memory. Energy prices are at frightening levels. And yes, there should be a windfall tax on the energy companies. They're making immense profits, and their executives are awarding themselves handsome salaries. It seems to me that the Bank of England has lost the plot. They have a target of 2% for inflation. They failed, and failed badly. It's nearly now 5 times that figure. And we have the ridiculous position of the Governor of the Bank of England earning £600,000 per year, taking home around 500,000, £500,000, when he says to ordinary workers to exercise constraint, or restraint rather, when you're asking for pay rises. He could have led by example and say, well, I'm earning a fair few bob, I will take off, say, 50 grand, which is more than most people in the country are earning. But he didn't do that. Similarly, he rarely seems to criticise senior executives who are awarding themselves huge sums in their salaries, bonuses, and share options, and so on. Inflation, as I said, is at 9%. The question today is, are the workforce going to be getting 9% increase in their wages today?
Minute left, Councillor.
Yeah. Our pension is going to get a rise of 9%. And our welfare benefits are going to go up by 9%. Because if they're not, then millions of people across the UK and tens of thousands of people in Salford are going to be the poorer. I remember when things can only get better under governments. Today, I'm saying things can only get worse under this government. Thank you.
You turn off your mic for Councillor King.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Greedo.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, in fact, can I refer to the initial comments from the City Mayor regarding my wife, Karen, and the kind comments about her recovery. And can I also take the opportunity of thanking the many members across the Council who have sent cards, emails, telephoned me. We really do appreciate it, and it certainly has helped Karen in her recovery. She is making recovery. It's a slow process. She hopes to be back with us soon. Whether that's June or July, I'm not too sure yet, but she will be back with us as soon as she is able. And perhaps you would allow me, Mr Mayor, because I didn't think it was appropriate when I accepted the Long Service Award, just to say that I think all those councillors that are here could not be here if it wasn't for the support of our husbands, wives, partners, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. And I certainly wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the support of Karen, who has been steadfast in supporting me over all those years, as I have tried to do with her. But thank you for those comments. Whilst we're on the, you started about COVID and the fact that we're in a, recovering from a difficult situation. And there's lots of people that we could actually thank about COVID. I'm just going to thank one person in the council chamber who I think has done a marvellous job and in a very non-political way. And that's Sam Bellamy, just going back there. Sam has done a tremendous job in providing cooked meals for hundreds of people, you know, throughout the area. She's done it without any... And I think we should just recognise when somebody does such a tremendous job without any consideration to herself. I know she has a very full life to lead as well. As far as COVID is concerned, it's difficult to say, I think, we shouldn't have spent this, that or the other on COVID, right? I would have spent, if I was in charge, whatever it took. And even if mistakes were made, and even if we spent more than we would normally have spent, and even if we had to ignore some of the normal checks that are made, I think in a situation of national emergency, those decisions had to be taken quickly. I think the fact that the government has brought us through COVID should be recognised. We recognise mistakes were made, but we also recognise that we have been one of the countries in the forefront of recovery. And I think we're now in that period. We still have people, unfortunately, with COVID. And in fact, only this morning, one of our colleagues, Councillor Ward, tested positive before coming to council, which was the reason why he had to put in his last-minute apologies. So we still think about all those people, Mr Mayor, who are suffering from COVID, and I certainly don't have any regrets about the sums of money which have been spent. I don't want to spend a long time, Mr Mayor, on talking about national issues, because one of the things I believe we are here for as councillors is to support our community and to support what matters locally to people on a day-to-day basis. I will come on to cost of living in a moment, but just very briefly. What I would like to say, in fact, is that there have been large sums of money received by this council in the levelling up that the Conservative government has introduced. That wasn't that. Levelling up was mentioned by the Mayor, but not the huge sums of money that both this council, the North West of England and Greater Manchester are receiving. And I think we are to be grateful to the government for recognising that at long last, the North of England generally is getting the support it needs from the government, and I hope it will continue to get that support, and we will certainly do our best to make sure that happens. As regards election results, I think you can do anything with figures, but I was always told, in fact, a majority of one is good enough. And whilst I congratulate Councillor Tetter on his very good result, nevertheless, I do stick by the principle that even if we get one vote majority, then that's good enough. And that brings me to my own situation next year, Mr Mayor. I will be more than happy to get a majority of one or more, which I'm sure I will achieve. I don't count my eggs beforehand. But I would remind you, in fact, that you can't revert to Worsley as being the safe Conservative seat, because the boundaries changed last year. It's a completely different ward to the one that it used to be. And we're now doing...
I'm sorry, Councillor Greeno, could I ask you to wind up, please? Give you a bit of licence there.
After 12 months, to actually communicate with the people who have joined the new ward, and I'm sure that's part of the reason for our success. Can I just finish, and I'm sorry I'm running out of time, Mr Mayor, but can I just finish by saying that our first priority, right, over the next 12 months, as a Conservative group and official opposition, is to bring pride back into our city. That, I think, is the one thing which has been missing. And I mean by that, in fact, by keeping our streets and roads clear of litter, by removing fly tipping within 24 hours.
Thank you, Councillor Greeno.
By filling potholes.
I've already given you some licence, but your time's up now. Thank you very much.
Finally, Mr Mayor, we will continue to fight with every ounce of our strength to protect the green belt in this city.
Thank you, Councillor Greeno. Made a speech from Councillor Keeley. Please don't use Councillor Greeno as your role model. I will be holding you to 5 minutes.
I look forward to it every day, Chair. Well, thank you very much. Before anything, I'd like to thank the residents of Worsley and Westwood Park for giving me the enormous honour to represent them. It's been a very gruelling and hard-fought 18 months since I was first elected, out on the streets almost every night in the rain, and I want to thank God for giving me the energy to get through this, and I look forward to getting stuck in. And I'm sure the Mayor and the rest of the Council, as it's not been mentioned, would like to send our best wishes and congratulations to Manchester United's under-18s who secured the Youth FA Cup last week at Old Trafford, and I'm not sure the general support of members here today, but hopefully we can all do that.
I was there.
Now, Mr. Mayor, in an interview on election night, and of course you've just said now, you needed to understand the issues that matter to the people of Salford. Now, these are plenty of issues, there's plenty that we can talk about, but of course I'm restricted to time. But I only have a few minutes, so I'll do my best to list as many as I can. Now, last July I attended a council meeting over at the Embankment, which I witnessed the cross-authority Places for Everyone plan, which was proposed and accepted by the council with a consultation period that followed. Now, there is no doubt to the people of Hazelhurst, to the people of Erland, to the people of Boothstown, that this indeed is not a plan for them. I urge people across this chamber to go and knock on Richmond Drive, go and knock on Cartmel Grove, go and knock on Hazelfields, which in my ward, they are proposing entry onto this proposed development. Now, the congestion, Mr. Mayor, and to the council, around Worsley roundabout, stretching down to Winton, all the way across the Bridgewater, is absolutely horrendous. The area comes to a standstill. Now, residents can expect to wait at least half an hour in traffic some mornings, and that is simply ridiculous. You wouldn't like that, I wouldn't like that, and to think it will be okay to have over 800 extra cars, thanks to the Hazelhurst development, battling this is simply incomprehensible. And of course, battling the commute, and then of course some vehicles getting a new tax to clean our air. Now, completely out of touch tax, may I add, that white van drivers will be hit, taxi cabs, you talk about disproportionate measures before, it's completely disproportionate. Now, traffic has been horrendous, accidents have occurred, and despite the promise of a new crossing in Winton, off Worsley Road, near Walker Road, near Alder Forest, it still has not been installed. And I've had so many residents, I was at a meeting last week, tell me how dangerous crossing is on existing roads, let alone with or without traffic lights. There is not sufficient infrastructure around the area. Now, Moorside High School had to take in an extra 2 Year 7 classes last year. GP surgeries have warned of becoming overwhelmed, and there isn't enough shops. One of the few open green spaces for our younger people to regularly visit, you want to smack 400 extra houses off. Now, it's important that in our area we have these green spaces. It's not in our back garden, which is frankly snobby, it's in everyone's back garden. Now, Councillor Merry, you yourself said in that meeting last year that there was no plan B. Well, Councillor Merry, this is plan B because, of course, the spatial framework was scrapped when Stockport withdrew. So, sorry to bring up your comments a year ago, but of course, if there was a plan B, there can be a plan C too. Now, in this plan, which I've taken a look at, it includes, it notes the extra greenbelt space. Well, that sounds nice, doesn't it? Extra greenbelt space, that sounds fantastic. Well, what does this include? Worsley Woods and Blackleach Park, because of course we wouldn't already think this was greenbelt space. It's covered in concrete and bricks and towers and everything. It's frankly insulting to include that there. Now, let's be honest, this is not a plan at all for the people of Salford. It's a plan needing to be confined to the books of history. And we have campaigned on a plan to protect our green spaces for decades, and the result 2 weeks ago, I'd like to think, has confirmed that is very much what residents want in our area. And for a council that prides itself on being green, you said yourself just moments ago that the council...
Minute left, Councillor.
That the council was awarded as one of the most green councils in the country, if not the green council in the country, if I'm correct. It's a shame you want to remove the spaces that help make it physically green. Now, houses were approved and almost being finished already on Hazelhurst. It's clear that these are completely out of character with the rest of the road, and that there's a variety of houses, you may have noticed, that are completely unacceptable. And a resident told me at the time that she visited the planning meeting regarding these number of houses, and she was frankly angry.
You need to be winding up now, Councillor.
I'll just pop the question now, Mr. Mayor. So I'd like to put this question to you, and I reserve my right to reply to the answer. Please will you today pop residents' minds and needs at my ward in Worsley and Western Park and stop the proposal to build 400 houses on Hazelhurst? Let's be on the right side of history here. Let's do this for our young people, many of whom I work with, and I'd like to think I'm young myself. Let's get a plan C up and running.
Time's up, Councillor. Thank you very much. Please sit down. Councillor.
Stop today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just turn off your mic for me, Councillor Keeley. Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thanks very much. I've just realised that we've had today a clear indication of what the Salford Tory strategy is going to be. They're faintly embarrassed by their own government. They don't really want to talk about what is happening to the government or even how it affects the people of Salford. Right? What they would rather talk about is how they can pretend that actually heavily influenced by what goes on at a national government. And the Mayor's quite rightly drawn attention to it. You mentioned, for example, Councillor Garrido, food banks. I noticed you didn't mention the remarks made by a Tory MP that said that people who actually visit food banks are clearly people who can't cook. I happen to have the privilege, along with you, City Mayor, of visiting a Jewish food bank in my area, where they talk to us about the misery that some people have been subjected to over Passover and all the rest of it that they were trying to relieve. And then, of course, we had your minister, and it's your minister, saying to us that the answer to the crisis, the cost of living crisis, is for people to work harder. That's all they need to do. Or perhaps they could get jobs as bankers, and that way they would actually relieve themselves in terms of the cost of living. Can I just sort of deal with some of the facts which the pair of you declined to mention? You mentioned the Clean Air Zone, right? The Clean Air Zone is a government initiative that we've had imposed upon us. We've had a requirement to actually deal with that, and we've actually dealt with it, right? And the reality of the situation is that we have asked for a no-charging policy to take place. We have actually tried to implement this in the fairest possible way that we can implement it. And I'm taking no lessons from the Tory party on fairness, I'm afraid. You mentioned the Green Belt and what you regard as terrible policies. Have you written to the government asking them not to impose housing targets on the City Council? Have you actually done that, or are you actually culpable in terms of neglecting the campaigning activity which we need to do in terms of national government to safeguard the interests of the people of your ward, but the people of my ward as importantly as I regard that? Now, you mentioned your local election results. Modesty doesn't allow me necessarily to say too much about my own election result, except to say that I was delighted, thanks to the hard work of the people around me, that we got 64% of the vote in Salford, in Broughton, and that the Tory vote in Broughton collapsed, along with the disappointment that they had in Kersal. So I think we are making strides. I think we did get a swing to Labour in those wards, in the inner city, in many of those wards, and I think there are still more campaigning activity to do, but I'm looking forward to the fight. I'm looking forward to exposing this current government that I think is now becoming an insult to the people I represent. They don't seem to care about the people in Lower Broughton or the people who are actually suffering as we actually come into the problems that the cost of living crisis is creating. They don't seem to care about that anymore.
Minute left, Councillor.
They come forward with fatuous remarks about the need to work harder and the need to learn to cook. Whereas the reality of the situation is that people on those estates are choosing whether to pay their energy bills or whether to eat. And I think that's an impossible situation to find families in this day and age, in the 21st century, thanks to a government that doesn't actually care about them. I would just wish that they went away.
Thank you, Councillor Mary. Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to comment on the comments that the City Mayor made regarding the National Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill. The fact that the government has recognised that there has been damage caused by their policy of removing restrictions from planning must be welcomed. That communities can have more say on developments in their area is one thing. But I represent a stable community, a community that is well built up. I represent the Western Seedley ward of this city. A ward that has a long-term and until recently very stable community. That stable community has been undermined because of this policy of removing restrictions on planning. And what has happened in Western Seedley is that there has been a great deal of homes of multiple occupation conversions in the area. That has led to transient communities and the problems that the lack of commitment to the community by these populations and the densification of the population of the city has led to many, many problems in the area. The biggest concern for my residents is densification of the population, the transient population that they are living with, the decimation of their communities, and they too would like to have a bigger say on the development in their communities. So this government needs to go further and allow long-term settled communities to have a much bigger say on the developments in their community. So I urge this council to pursue the government to press for much more say in developments within stable long-term communities in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. I have 4 more members to speak, and after that I propose that we will then give the City Mayor his right to reply before going to break. So, Councillor Tete, please.
Yeah, I initially didn't plan to speak today, but I think I just want to say thank you to, first of all, to the Mayor and for acknowledging the fantastic results we had in Eccles. Those results were indeed not because of just me. My colleagues here, Councillor Shah and Sharmina August, and Councillor Mike McCusker have been instrumental to that, including, obviously, not to forget my agent, Peter, for being so steadfast.
Your microphone's gone off.
Thank you. I tend to get a bit, emotional sometimes when certain issues have been mentioned, and trying to skirt around the issue of national issues not being too important. National issues actually affect what happens here locally. And I was quite disgusted by a few things that occurred during the campaign itself. I got an email from a resident. I'm going to try and read it for you, all right? And the email went this way. Your canvassers came knocking on the doors last week and dropped off your flyer. I'm very glad that they did. I wanted to send you some details. The flyer was delivered after Easter. The flyer that was delivered after Easter had even taken place by a paper boy. They couldn't even front up and knock on a few doors and haven't even provided any contact details other than their address. I will be returning the attached by hand to the address. They are so out of touch, it is so untrue. They don't even know we have black bins in Salford, not grey bins. And don't let them get away with this blatant lie about the congestion zone stuff. Legally mandated by the Tory cabal and forced on local councils. It looks like he's taking his lead from the liar in number 10, and they have to be stopped. I mean, this is something from a resident who clearly isn't happy with what is going on with what's happening in number 10. This is something from a resident who is very, very passionate, putting pen to paper and emailing me and writing to me as well. It is absolutely shameful that we try to disconnect what happens nationally to what's happening locally here on the ground. And it makes me very, very emotional and very upset about it. That's why I'm actually speaking today. I didn't intend to speak today. But whatever happens nationally affects us here locally as well. And we have to recognize that. We can't scare about those issues. I would want to add a few things as well. I mean, Britain First, seeing them on the election floor that day and seeing lovely Jewish children on that day as well, the imagery was sad to see. I mean, I'm a black person, by the way. They wouldn't want me to exist. They wouldn't want me to be here in Salford. And so I'm getting very emotional about that. So we need to try to warn them off. Every single party here has to do their best to make sure they do not have a standing here in Salford. Simple as. Sam, well done. All right? Absolutely well done. COVID, you did some great work there. And I'm very happy for your new role as well. All right, thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tete. If you could just turn off your mic for me, please. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to make two quick comments regarding points that the City Mayor has made. The first one, I'm really delighted that he mentioned Solicitor Mary Monson. I didn't cross her path whilst I was in the legal profession because I was a divorce lawyer and she was a criminal lawyer. However, I did meet her about 4 or 5 years ago, actually outside the Civic Centre here, and I found her to be an extremely nice woman. She had a very, very good reputation in the legal profession, and I'm really pleased that she was mentioned earlier in the City Mayor's speech. The second comment is about the Bridgewater Gardens. Yes, I went last August. It is fantastic. And two things I'd like to say. It's wonderful how it's supplied more jobs for people in the city of Salford. And I think the City Mayor said a further 32 jobs are to come. And also it's vastly raised the profile of the city of Salford. I have quite a few friends that live down south, and they saw a programme on the Bridgewater, and they said, oh, I think this is worth coming up to Greater Manchester for. So bringing in tourism as well. So thank you for mentioning those 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Knight.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just firstly politely correct the City Mayor? I think the councillor who received the most votes in this chamber is my colleague, Councillor Bob Clark, who, if I remember correctly, received last year over 2,200 votes. So he's undoubtedly the most popular councillor in this chamber. Yet again, we have another speech from the City Mayor all about national politics, indeed about international politics. We heard a lot about Ukraine, about what's going on across the world, which are all important matters, but not much about Salford. Correct me if I'm wrong, it sounded more like a leadership bid. But we don't hear much about what my residents want to hear about, which is bins, potholes, street cleaning. We seem to hear more about national things. And Councillor Merry says that we are embarrassed of our government by not mentioning them. Yet again, we are here today to speak, we are here in our jobs to speak about local issues. One of the biggest issues facing my residents is the cuts to the bin collections and street cleaning and things like that. And I don't think the Conservatives did very bad at all in Curzon and Broughton Park. In fact, it's the 6th year running that the Labour haven't won in what used to be a very, very strong Labour ward. And I think it's evident why Labour are losing seats. I know that the City Mayor mentioned how many seats the Conservatives have lost across the country, but if I can bring him back to Salford just for a moment, in fact, he did lose 3 seats here in Salford, and I'm not surprised we can see why. In my view, the only way Labour are going to win any seats in this city are by having a candidate stand who the residents think is standing against Labour policies, and then trick the residents by having that councillor then either join the Labour Party or simply support them in this chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Lightner. And the last word going to Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to mention Councillor Keeley talked about congestion, and we don't want to go, well, we can go if you want, as far back as you want. I do know the Conservatives, because Councillor Greedo will remember this better than anybody, they all cheered when, do you remember when the congestion charge vote came and people said, no, we're not having congestion charging. But part of that deal was to have 200 extra bus services in Greater Manchester, so of course that went down the pan at the same time. And the Conservative record in Salford is not only do we not want to control congestion, but we're totally opposed to the Lee-guided busway, which, may I remind you, is the most successful busway in Greater Manchester by a mile, and has been literally from the first week it opened right through to the start of the pandemic. So the point I'm making to you, Councillor Keeley, is when you're on the doorstep and people talk about the lack of buses, then you need to say to them, well, why is that a situation? And the Conservative Party now, on the Transport Committee in Greater Manchester, have finally, after a long time, decided yes, we do need control of our bus services for the first time since 1986. But the reason why it's not happened is because the bus operators don't want to let go of that control. The bus operators have had us in court, they've lost, and now they're going to appeal that decision. So we're in this situation of complete stagnation. So I'm hoping that the Salford City Mayor and other leaders in Greater Manchester will try and get through that impasse as quickly as possible, return a franchise system, which we want, which they've got in London. They've had in London, as you know, for the last 30 years, but we haven't had any of that since 1986. And what we have to do is improve the bus services. But the problem, the biggest problem is not just that they're in private hands, but the bus operators are currently telling us if they can't increase the patronage on buses because of the pandemic and other issues, they may well be facing cuts this year to the bus services. And if there's cuts to the bus services, Worsley, as well as everywhere else in Salford, will be just as vulnerable to reductions, because the way operators cut bus services is not on need, it's on money. Which bus services make the most money will stay, the bus services that lose money will go. And that's the situation we're in, and I'm hoping the Salford City Mayor will do his best with the leaders to try and address that problem.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. That concludes the debate, so can I hand back to the City Mayor for his response, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll take each individual in turn. Councillor Lewis, thank you very much for your comments with regards to the mayoral team and gender balance, and also thanks for your comments around Councillor Pepper. I'm really looking forward to that friendly challenge, and I share your observations of Councillor Pepper, having got to know her on the campaign trail. I think she'll make a great contribution to the team and will be a great asset within the mayoral team. For sharing your understanding and experiences of Mary Monson. I was aware of her, and obviously I've learned a lot about her more recently after a sad passing, and you know what she's done for young people has been second to none in terms of the criminal justice system. And let's not forget, there's a long way to go in that space. Many of you in this council chamber will be very familiar with the cuts to legal aid and the challenges in terms of access to justice that many people in many areas of law are currently facing within this country. And we have to get better at making sure people can actually access justice within this country. And that does mean making monies available for those who struggle to obviously acquire legal representation. In terms of your comment or your question with regards to school meals, this is something I'm aware of, and I know the mayoral team will be considering all of this in due course. I guess what I would say is, you know, this is set against a backdrop of significant austerity and cuts to the local authority budget. We do not have the luxury of setting deficit budgets. We need to balance the budgets and deal with pressures in year. And at the moment, there's huge uncertainty around the corner for local government in terms of a business rate reset, fair funding review, and the impact of the energy crisis. You know, recently I was looking at some modelling we were doing with a view to writing to the Secretary of State. Worst case scenario at the start of this financial year would potentially be a £10 million bill coming our way for the public estate that we hadn't originally anticipated. So there's a lot going on. Inflation continues to create huge problems for service areas and our budget moving forward. So being all over that is very much going to be a focus of the mayoral team moving forward. But as I say, on free school meals, this will be considered by the mayoral team, and obviously we'll inform council and colleagues accordingly. Councillor King, thank you very much for your economic sort of lesson, I think. I didn't know if there was a question in there, but you certainly gave some good statistics and good information, which I'm sure our opposition colleagues will end up not agreeing with, but nevertheless the figures and the facts speak for themselves in terms of whether or not we are actually seeing an economic recovery post-COVID. Arguably, if you look at employment, we are not. What I would say is if we're really interested in meaning and lived experience, we have to look beyond the statistics and beyond the numbers, because statistics belie in many respects what's really happening within our communities. We know in the labour market there are huge challenges with zero-hour contracts, low pay, lack of career progression, new glass ceilings within the labour market where people struggle to earn over around £24,000 a year. And all of this is within a context of rising inflation and cost of living. So we do need to be attuned to reality. And if inflation does stay at 8-9%, I am genuinely concerned for the future. You'll know one of the things that happens every year is rents in the social housing sector are increased in line with national government formula. And the formula that is used by housing associations and councils up and down the country is CPI plus 1%. So if we have inflation running at 9% plus 1%, where on earth will those residents be able to find the money to pay their rent, especially if housing benefit isn't increasing by 9%, as you rightly highlighted. So what government does in terms of responding to the inflationary crisis is going to be really important for pensioners, for those who are reliant on benefits, but importantly for people who are in work in terms of what happens with their wages. Colleagues will know in this chamber, local government workers only saw a 1.75% increase in this financial year. That is way below what inflation is currently running at. It's a real-term cut for people who've been on the front line during the last 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic. And quite frankly, it's scandalous. And it's scandalous also because we don't get a penny from central government to pay our local government workers that pay award every year. Every year, you all know, it's a budgetary pressure for this local authority, and in this year's budget, that actually cost us £3.4 million. So again, on local government financing and paying pay awards in line with inflation, I look forward to our Conservative colleagues making the case to their own government in the interests of local government workers. Again, national decisions matter. They have profound implications for what happens within our city, and to suggest otherwise is downright scandalous as far as I'm concerned. I've never known, a situation where Westminster and Whitehall make decisions which have profound implications for what happens in this council be so bad. So let's be honest with the people of our city. Let's not lie to them, let's not deceive them. Let's actually be honest about how Westminster and Whitehall impacts the work of councils up and down this country. Councillor Garrido, thank you very much for your kind words with regards to Councillor Karen Garrido. We do continue to think about Councillor Karen Garrido, and I still have very fond memories when she was the ceremonial mayor and some of the great stuff she did in our city, being a real ambassador for Salford and Salford people. Also, thanks for your kind comments with regards to Councillor Sammy Bellamy. Sammy, as you know, has done a sterling job, and I also pay tribute to what Sammy has done during the last 2 years of the COVID pandemic. And even prior to that, Sammy has a real passion for tackling poverty and inequality and just pulling together with people across many of our communities to help them in their hour of need. So I do absolutely share your comments. In terms of COVID and doing all you can, and you would spend whatever you could, I mean, in some respects, I see where you're coming from, but let's not forget, this was a government that was literally partying whilst the country was locked down, and why we couldn't go and see loved ones and members of family. So, I don't share your faith in the government. The government was more interested in having parties than actually delivering on the job in hand, which was governing in probably a crisis I've never seen in my lifetime. In terms of levelling up, thank you for your comments there. Yes, we were successful with levelling up, but as you know, we were in category 2. I'm not sure if you've written to the government to tell them how appalled you are that the 18th poorest local authority in the country is actually deemed to be in category 2. You can probably inform me after this council chamber as to whether or not you've made representations to the government on that matter. But I have to pay tribute to our officers who've done an absolutely sterling job in landing a successful bid through the first round of levelling up funding. It is all credit to them, and also the lobbying and influencing that went on around that submission. I think the submission itself is inevitably what won us the day in terms of the impact that that's hopefully going to have now on the city of Salford. What I would say is we are a post-industrial part of the country. We've had the heart ripped out of this city. We've tried to transition, as you know, in this post-industrial era. We've got a lot more to do to properly level up the city of Salford. As I say, 18th poorest local authority in the country, according to the government's own index of multiple deprivation. So yes, let's cheerlead some of the capital we're getting, but we really need to reform the Green Book appraisal that the Treasury operate, the benefit cost ratio that they operate, how money is just being flooded into London and the South East. If we're going to properly level up the economy, we need a lot more money coming into Salford and into Greater Manchester. And also, let's not be disingenuous. There is smoke and mirrors here. Just reminding colleagues, this council has lost 232 million since 2010-11. Juxtapose that with the money we're getting in capital through the levelling up round 1, and it's a drop in the ocean, because the 232 million is cuts to the revenue support grant, unfunded budget pressures. That means it's 232 million each and every year the people of Salford are actually losing. So let's get things into perspective on the matter and issue of levelling up. In terms of bringing pride to the city of Salford, I join you in wanting to prioritise tackling litter, fly tipping, and protecting our green spaces. As you know, it's about greening the entire city of Salford, and I'm pleased that 60% of our city is green. We've got lots more to do in that space in terms of continuing to green the city, plant trees, and it was great to see trees being reinstated recently on Chapel Street. Again, a great contribution to the 2 wards that benefit from that part of the city there. Moving on to Councillor Keeley. Gosh, where do I begin? I think, first and foremost, I don't know, Councillor Keeley, if you actually understand planning in light of the comments you've actually just made to this chamber. We have to produce a plan to plan for the future. We have to maintain a 5-year land supply. The reason why we have to do that is to avoid planning by appeal. If we don't have a 5-year land supply and a developer comes to the planning committee, they will get to develop anywhere in the city of Salford. And planning by appeal also, as I'm sure you'll know, costs the local authority a significant amount of money. Money we've not got. And if you're familiar with the number of legal cases associated with Broad Oak, you'll be familiar with how much we've spent on defending Greenbelt and green spaces within this city. You know, we stand for Greenbelt. Don't be disingenuous to the people of the city of Salford. You'll also be familiar, I suspect, with the situation at Swinton Park Golf Course, where we haven't designated that land as housing land. We've designated as for the purposes of leisure, and more specifically for golf, and that's in the local plan. But obviously, we have a situation now where developers are empowered because of planning legislation, the national planning policy legislation, all of that activity. So we will continue to do what we do best. But also, let's get this right. We have to plan for our future. At the moment, a lot of our housing need is being met by building high-rises in the urban core, namely in Odsal, in the Keys, in Blackfriars and Trinity. And I'm sure Councillor Keeley will appreciate not everyone, especially families and children, necessarily want to live in a high-rise apartment. So we do have to deliver the homes that your government has set, and we do have to build more family housing in the city of Salford. And importantly, the point you raise around infrastructure. I was wondering for a moment whether or not you actually listened to what I said about the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill. At the moment, your legislation, i.e. the National Planning Policy Framework, allows developers to make at least 20% profit before they even need to consider contributing to infrastructure. So my question to you is, what are you doing to make representations to your government to actually change the National Planning Policy Framework, rather than turning up to a council chamber and engaging in popularism and opportunism, something I often associate with the Liberal Democrats, but seemingly the Conservative Party are learning from them now. But seriously, you know, let's deal with the substance of the issue. If you're really concerned about these matters, you need to be urgently making representation around the National Planning Policy Framework, because that's fundamentally what empowers developers. And let's not forget, colleagues, it's the developers and the landlords, actually, that fund the Tory party. So, you know, to turn up... To turn up to this chamber today as though, you know, you're somehow detached and dislocated from this evil development world who are actually funding your party is downright scandalous, to be honest with you. Moving on to Worsley Woods and Blackleach Park. Again, I wonder whether or not you're aware of what we're trying to do there. In the planning policy, the local plan, the PFE, what we're trying to do is actually safeguard those spaces in the city by affording them more protection, by deeming them green belt. This is what we are trying to do. One would hope that you would be supportive of that endeavour. And then on clean air, I think Councillor Jones has already done a decent job of kind of telling you a little bit about the history of all of this. But we are at the moment trying to push government for a non-charging zone in Greater Manchester and at least a Category B clean air zone. So it is with the Prime Minister, it is with the Secretary of State. We're going to lobby hard and we are going to try and push for, as I say, a Category B clean air zone and non-charging zone for Greater Manchester. But let's be clear, the work that has been done to date in Greater Manchester is off the back of a legal directive from the Tory government. Please, please, please tell the truth. That is incumbent on all of you, and I mean this cross-party. Let's not deceive our residents. Let's not tell half-truth. Let's tell the people exactly what's going on. And I think all of this hopefully points to the absolute importance of decisions taken in Westminster and Whitehall. You cannot turn up to this chamber and pretend as though those decisions, those legal frameworks, those policy frameworks within which we operate don't matter. They do matter, they've always mattered, and unless we change the form of government in this country, they unfortunately will continue to matter. Councillor Merry, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the Tory opposition are embarrassed by their own government, but they can't actually bring themselves to say it. And when Councillor Garrido says he doesn't want to talk about national government or national issues, again, I say to all of you, they're saying this because national government and national issues has profound implications for what happens here in our city. Councillor Merry, you're absolutely right to highlight the comments by the Tory MP with regards to food banks. I mean, that is absolutely scandalous. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, an inflationary crisis. People are struggling to make ends meet. We have an energy crisis. Welfare benefits are not being uprated by inflation. And we have Tory MPs making such derisory and absolutely disgusting comments. Absolutely scandalous. I won't rehash the Clean Air Zone comments that you made and also the objectively assessed housing need numbers, just to say, you know, the last time the Tory government meddled with those numbers, the housing number for for Manchester, within Greater Manchester, increased by 35%. Why did it do that? It did that because you wanted to protect the Tory local authorities in the south by moving housing numbers into conurbations like Greater Manchester. Dare I say, did you make representation on that issue back then? Probably not. But you're happy to turn up today and obviously make the comments you're making. I just find all of this utterly disingenuous. I really do. Councillor Wade, thank you very much for your comments on the National Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill. As you rightly highlighted, houses of multiple occupation are a response to what we're seeing in terms of the housing and homelessness crisis. They're also a response to what we're seeing in terms of the National Planning Policy Framework and delivering the homes we need being about profit rather than sustainable communities. You know our planning committee operates the Article 4 directives. You also know that we have selective licensing in the City of Salford, and I know Councillor McCusker and colleagues are looking at a potential density policy to see if we can try and tackle some of these issues. But let's make no bones about it. HMOs are a consequence of failed Tory housing and planning policy. It is as simple as that. I'm not saying there isn't a role for houses of multiple occupation. Absolutely not. There is, and some people choose actively to live in houses of multiple occupation. But let's be clear, the proliferation and growth in HMOs is fundamentally because of a failure of Tory housing and planning policy. As you know, we're trying to increase the stock of council housing, truly affordable housing now in the City of Salford. People should have a place to call home. And I'm not convinced that some of the HMOs across the whole of Greater Manchester are. We know we have issues with regards to the decency of that accommodation and also the services that are provided to tenants and residents. And obviously, we await the Renters Reform Bill to see whether or not government and the Tories do actually empower tenants moving forward. But we will continue to do all we can within the confines of the law, as determined by Westminster and Whitehall, to deliver on some of the issues and the concerns that you raise. But as I say earlier, you know, developers and landlords are key funders and contributors to the Tory party. So I await with bated breath. Councillor Tete, thank you for your comments. You did do a fantastic result in Eccles, and I know it was a team effort. I know you gave a shout out there to Councillor August and McCusker and Peter, your agent. And thanks also for sharing the email from residents around some of the literature that was posted through their letterbox. Again, engaging in propaganda around the Clean Air Zone, not necessarily telling the truth, and engaging in the lies and deceit that we've almost seen from the Prime Minister of this country over recent times. I think you're right to highlight that it's shameful that we disconnect what's happening locally from actually what happens nationally in this country. And, you know, I've always, you know, tried where possible to highlight that interconnectedness of ultimately what happens in local government. And, you know, the future, the fair funding review, the business rate reset, this is all very much part and parcel of the work programme of the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. They will determine ultimately the future of local government financing. Yes, we'll have an opportunity to probably participate in consultation, influence things, but ultimately it's the Tories who determine what happens in terms of our finances. Thanks also for your heartfelt comments around Britain First, and I could see you personally getting emotional there, and as you rightly highlighted, that juxtaposition of Jewish children, young females, there observing the actual count and participating in local democracy with the fascists and Britain First was just awful. It was just awful. And I know you come from a place as a black member of this chamber, and you know, I salute you and I honour you for everything you do in your community in Eccles, but also for this City Council. And I also share your comments with regards to Councillor Bellamy. Thanks also, Councillor Fletcher, for your kind comments regarding Mary Monson and RHS Bridgewater. I think RHS Bridgewater is a great asset in the city of Salford, and I've already highlighted the great work that Mary Monson has done, and it's right and proper we recognise that in this chamber. Councillor Leitner, thank you for your comments. I have to say, on listening to the questions and comments you made, I was wondering whether or not you listened to anything I actually said, to be honest with you. But again, you know, we're kind of getting used to the Conservative Party just creating their own reality and being removed from actual facts and truths. So, you know, we will crack on. I mean, you talk about cuts to bin collections. I will remind you, it's your government that has cut our budget. And also, obviously, in the early years, it was propped up by the Liberal Democrats. 232 million has been taken out of Salford since 2010-11. 53% of core funding from central government has gone. You know, if we had that money, and I say it's a money on a recurrent basis, that's 232 million each year, I can promise you we would be looking at reinstating bin collections. So if you can get that money back for us, that would be absolutely fantastic. In terms of your comments around Councillor Walter's great success, I think I take that as a bit of a backhanded compliment. Clearly you're very frightened and worried about the implications of Councillor Walters in your ward, and clearly Councillor Walters is resonating with the electorate, shall we say, in your ward. And you know, knowing what I know of Councillor Walters, he's a man of integrity and he likes to inform his own opinions. So to present him as some sort of, you know, Labour sycophant, I think is downright rude, to be quite honest with you. But anyway, I look forward to that continual jousting in this chamber between the two of you. Councillor Jones, thank you very much for giving our new colleagues, a history lesson in how we've tried to tackle air congestion in the city of Salford, and how unfortunately in some of those early years our endeavours were not supported by the Conservative Party. And as you rightly highlighted, the Lee Guided Busway has been a huge success, and I know residents of Worsley and Westwood Park and Bootstown see that as a great asset in their communities, getting access to the city centre, both for work purposes and also for leisure purposes in an evening. So great successes there, but you're absolutely right to highlight the issues with regards to buses. At the end of the day, they've been privatised, and as we've rowed back on public subsidies, inevitably what's happened there is they've cut what they deem non-commercial routes across the whole of Greater Manchester. The services they deliver are not up to scratch, and as you know, many communities now are cut off from actually being able to access our buses, which is absolutely tragic. We need to redress that. Andy Burnham is determined. The leaders of Greater Manchester are united and determined in refranchising our buses. You're right to highlight the Court of Appeal granting recently from one of the bus operators, and obviously what we will continue to do is fight that issue. I have to say it was a little bit of a surprise, given that the judicial review found in favour of ourselves on all counts, as far as I'm aware. So onwards and upwards with regards to bringing public transport back to the people of Greater Manchester. Thank you very much.
Thank you, City Mayor. It would appear I made a slight faux pas jumping straight into your part. Apparently we've got the issue of setting our diaries for here. I think it's rather important. So item 11 is the dates of the future meetings, 2022, 2020. Someone's wrote that wrong. 2032. We're going that far in the future.
Trying to get organised.
Yeah, let's just stick it to 2023, sure. So, Council is asked to note the schedule for the dates of the meeting for the municipal year 2022-2023. Do I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Nelson. And Councillor Warmisham seconds. Do the Council accept that report? Thank you. So with that, it's now coming up to 11:30. I propose that we take a 15-minute comfort break and return at 1:45 for the second session, if members are happy with that. Please be seated, councillors. Chair's not any better. That's what it swapped it out for me while I was away. Councillor August still there. Just there. Just in case she indicates. Okay, item 14 is general questions or comments to Cabinet members on the discharge of responsibilities within their portfolios. So, although we have not received any questions with notice, therefore I will go through the names individually for each Cabinet member as listed on the Council agenda. So, Councillor Tracy Kelly, Statutory Deputy City Mayor and Lead Member for Housing, Property and Renovation. Any questions? City Mayor.
It's more of a comment. I don't know if colleagues know, but last night we had the Northern Housing Awards, and Salford Council Developments working with Seddons came highly commended for the work we've been doing on social and affordable rents. So I'd just like to pay thanks and tribute to the lead member for housing, Councillor Tracy Kelly, but also Councillor Merry, who chairs the Derive board. I think they've done a sterling job times, and it's great to see our work in council housing now being recognised by national awards. Thank you.
Councillor Garrido.
Yeah, the comment really is Deputy City Mayor, and we've had some comments this morning about the RHS. I would just like her to understand, both myself and Councillor Keeley visited yesterday with the General Manager and did a tour to see the progress which has been made at the RHS. Obviously the City Mayor mentioned I go out from the council chamber today that they are at different buildings some places, and in particular, in fact, they're desperately sourced for shed for one of the new facilities there. So if any citizens of Salford who are here, I think Sam's there, yeah, you are, sir. You know, we do need to encourage residents to look at where there are vacancies, and we do need to support the RHS in trying to find
Thank you, Councillor Greeno. Councillor Kelly, would you like to respond?
Sorry. Thanks, Councillor Greeno. Yeah, with regards to that, I will share with all our neighbourhood teams and any other partners that we may have in recruitment. I'm aware that there is a workforce problem across the whole of the city in terms of some jobs being filled. So I think we do need to work on that, and thank you for your comments.
Councillor John Merry, Deputy City Mayor and Lead Member for Adult Social Care and Equalities. Any questions? Any comments? Okay. Got away clean on that one, Councillor Merry. Councillor Sharma August, Lead Member for Inclusive Economy, Anti-Poverty and Equalities. Any questions? Any comments? Thank you. Councillor Jim Kamel, Lead Member for Children's and Young People Services. Councillor Keeler.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, just a question to Councillor Campbell. I'd just like to ask, as somebody who works closely with Moorside High School and with the Dean Centre, it's an excellent facility there, and perhaps Councillor, you might be able to outline some of the plans over the next 12 months for youth provision, especially in my ward, which has seen a small rise in antisocial behaviour, especially around the Broad Oak Park and the Moorside area. So perhaps it would be helpful to hear some of the plans that I'll be able to tell my constituents later on.
Councillor Kamel.
Thank you. I'm not really sure exactly what the question is. It's quite general. I haven't got a specific answer for you, to be honest. I think if we want to have a meeting and sit down, talk about it, and introduce you to the people who work there, youth attached team, etc., then we can share those plans with the public.
Councillor Keeley, did you just want to reply again?
Yeah, just very quickly. No, of course, absolutely. There's plenty of people that I'm planning to meet with over the next few weeks, all sorts of introductions that we've been asked to take part in. So yeah, I look forward to welcome the opportunity to meet with yourself.
Thank you, Councillor Keeley. Councillor Bill Hines, Lead Member for Finance and Support Services.
Chair, just before anybody asks any questions, can I just make a comment on the fact of what Councillor Lightner said, why we talk about national politics. Because national politics, have, as the Mayor had said, have a massive bearing on what we can do. And as the Mayor has said, we're the 18th most deprived authority in the country. You know, we struggle when we put I've got every right, Robin. And Robin, that doesn't stop me talking on what I want to talk about. It is there. So therefore, it has a great bearing on us. We've got great financial problems in front of us over the next year, which will make issues for the people of this city. There's no doubt about that. It will make a great issue. whether it's capital spending, whether it's the deficit that we start the year on. So I just want Councillor Lightner to understand that and what effects it may have on his community. And therefore as well, Mr Mayor, I really take the opportunity of congratulating our officers that have worked tirelessly over the last 2 years, especially in my directorate, dealing with all the grant situations and everybody coming through without any help from government in the fact about restaffing or paying people to carry on that job. They've worked tirelessly, and I take my hat, and I think the council should take the hat off to them. So, but now if there's any questions, Mayor.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor. Any questions for Councillor Hines? Councillor Greeno, comments? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First and foremost, I want to, Councillor Hines, if you would allow me to place on record my thanks to the Head of Finance, Joanne Hardman, and also the Head of Audit, Simon Wood. I've come to an end of my term of office as I've taken on other responsibilities, so I'm obviously no longer be on the Audit Committee. But I would like to thank them for the amount of work that they actually do. There's an enormous amount of work that's done, which and I would just like, in fact, the council to recognise the amount of work that they do together with their teams. So just going on, in fact, to your further comments, we mentioned earlier, in fact, about levelling up and the amount of money that we receive. Councillor Clark and myself have had discussions with the Chief Exec, and we have asked for figures regarding the amount of money that we're receiving on the levelling up. Sorry, it keeps going off for some reason. Yeah, it's got a mind of its own, I'm afraid, a bit like me. Yeah, and the amount of money that we receive via Grace Majesty Council, which ultimately has come from the government, that would be very helpful in us assessing, how much money we've received, what that's been spent on, and whether, in fact, as councillors, we need to have some input on how that money is actually distributed within the city. So I look forward to actually receiving those figures, and if you could do anything to actually speed that up, that we would be very grateful. Thank you.
Councillor Hines, right reply.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, obviously anything that comes to fore will be reporting back to Council and to the appropriate committees and where we are with the monies that come in. And we look with interest, again, what the Mayor has said in his replies on levelling up. I just saw a piece yesterday in the paper that apart from Birmingham, anything north of Birmingham, bar Edinburgh, is not suffering, as getting as much money as southern authorities. But we'll keep you well informed as we go forward.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. Okay, next is Councillor Bentham as lead member for Environment, Neighbourhoods and Community Safety. New in the job. Sorry to drop you right in it. Any questions? Any comments? Okay. Councillor Nelson and then Councillor Keeler.
Thank you, Chair. Reflecting on the comments of Councillor Lightner earlier, I personally want to thank our environment team for their sterling work, emptying bins like clockwork, removing fly tipping off the streets within hours of councillors reporting it. And with the opportunity to work hand in hand with officers, I'm unsure why Councillor Lightner raises the issue of dirty streets and bins in the way he's done today, instead of being a proactive local councillor and addressing the issues in his ward. Councillor Bentham, please we pass on my thanks to the environment team and the street cleansing team for their hard work, and that it certainly is appreciated. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Keeler.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Lightner is a very proactive councillor, Councillor Nelson, I'm sure you'll see. But on the point important, just obviously congratulations on your new appointment in the role, and just again, similar to the question before, if you'd meet with me to discuss some of the issues that we've had. There has been a lot of antisocial behaviour recently in Broadoak. We have obviously contacted the authorities. I'm not entirely sure, obviously you're aware of it, you might not have been, that's fine, but I'd love to meet with yourself to maybe chat over these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kearley. Councillor Bentham.
Thank you very much for those questions. As members of this chamber will be aware, I am relatively new in post. In fact, I make it about an hour and a half. Thanks, everybody. What I can say is that I'm incredibly proud of the work that our environmental services team have done. And in fact, I know that David Robinson and his staff are the only staff in the entire Greater Manchester region that maintained full bin collection throughout the entire pandemic. I'm not sure whether your local authority can match up to that, Councillor Leitner. And in response to Councillor Kearley, more than happy. Thank you. Thanks very much, everybody.
I'm sorry to do this to you, Councillor Bentham, but I'd forgotten Councillor Robin Greenhouse would like to make a comment. I'm sure it's going to be a positive one.
So it's the first time. I'm sure you didn't do it on purpose, Chair. I'll have to get used to getting a longer arm, I'm afraid, so you can see it. Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Bentham on her promotion to the heady heights of environment, and I'm sure that you will do an excellent job. You'll certainly be hearing a little bit from us over the year, but I would like to join with you in thanking particularly David Robinson for the huge amount of work that he does for us as councillors. I don't think there's any done. Sorry, keep going off. Perhaps we can get a new one of these. I'm looking up there now. Yeah, I don't think there's anything I've ever asked him or his team to do that they haven't done. And I think they must be, in that respect, one of the best teams in the council. Just to pick up really on what Councillor Nelson said. Yes, there are certain things that we do within the current budget. But if you go around the city, there are areas where weeds have overgrown, roads look in a real state, not cleaned properly, and so on. And that's not because our staff are not doing the job properly, it's because it's not being prioritised properly in the budget. And what we would say from this side, from the opposition side, is that we need to prioritise more money from the budget. Now, yes, that means careful looking at the budget to see where we can actually do the adjustments. Sorry? You raised a point of order?
Councillors,
yeah.
Councillor,
you know, that means we have to prioritise. And if we need to prioritise getting our city looking cleaner and brighter and so on, then as we said, and the Mayor actually, I think, agreed with us, it will help to bring pride back into our city, and that's a priority.
Thank you, Councillor Green. You promised me you were going to play nice, oh dear. Okay, Councillor Bentham, would you just like to respond to that before we move on to the agenda?
As I previously said, I'm new in position, only an hour and a half, plus 5 minutes maybe. Yeah, I intend to do everything that I can to make sure that our streets are safe and a pleasant environment for our residents within the budgetary controls that we have. Thank you, Councillor.
In the absence of Councillor Mike McCusker, lead member for Planning Sustainable Development, and the exec support also being only an hour into the new role, if there's any questions, the exec would be happy to take them on board. So, any questions for Councillor McCusker? No. Any comments? No. Thank you.
Chair.
Councillor Sarner.
It's a point of order, Chair. It's not a question to Councillor McCusker, it's a point of order I wish to make at this point. Given the highly unusual way Councillor Hines commented without anybody asking him a question or making a comment, can I suggest it's recorded in the minutes Councillor Hines made a comment to himself?
I'm not even going to get into the, as we go through the items, each lead member is entitled to start with their comments, and I believe he was entitled to do exactly what it is. I'm not going to discuss it any further, and I'm just going to move on the agenda, unless you want to add something to that. Absolutely, that's how I understand it. Each lead member has the opportunity to stand up, make a comment first, and then jump into the question. Item 15, general questions or comments to chairs of scrutiny. Oh dear, okay, so are we going to go on the old chairs? Because I'd have to jump down there and get onto the floor for the first one, and I'm not even on my first thing. So it's questions and comments for the chairs of scrutiny panels. So it would have been Councillor Gina Reynolds for overview and scrutiny. No? Okay, thank you. Councillor Adrian Bucklehurst, Children's Scrutiny Panel. Comments? No. Councillor Stuart Dickman, Community and Neighbourhood Scrutiny. Questions, comments? No. Councillor Morris, Health and Social Care Scrutiny Panel, new into the role as well. Oh, Councillor.
Thanks, Ceremonial Mayor. It was just a quick point, and I welcome Councillor Morris back to the chair of the scrutiny panel. I pay tribute also to Councillor Tanya Birch, who's done a sterling job over the last year. All I would ask that over the next 12 months, after my departure from the mayoral team, I'm now back on the backbenches of the Labour group. I'm going to enjoy my next 12 months, as I'm sure John Merry will now know. But I would ask that the scrutiny panel do look at the work of the Insourcing Commission as an immediate priority in terms of the objectives we have set out and the City Mayor set out in relation to insourcing as much as we can of the adult social care offer we give to our residents. And obviously it is the art of the possible on what we can afford, but I would make it a matter of urgency for the scrutiny panel to do so immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Morris, would you like to respond to that? Thank you for that, Councillor Morris. Councillor Rob Sharp, Growth and Prosperity Scrutiny Panel. Any question? Councillor Garrido.
I'll try and keep the bottom pressed down. Perhaps I could ask Councillor Sharp.
Oh, sorry, I just realised that Councillor Sharp's not here. I don't know who's going to be stepping in.
Sorry, whoever is dealing with it.
Can we take the question and get back to you after the...
Right, so is there nobody here who's answering on behalf of his... Anyway, I'll give you the question, you can decide.
It would be me, I guess.
I'll give you the question, you can decide whether it can be answered or not. Some weeks ago now, the Growth and Prosperity Scrutiny Committee held a call-in, and the call-in was about the rise in council rents that the City Mayor was proposing in Pendleton. Now, some weeks have now passed by, and it strikes me this has been pushed under the carpet. I'm not saying it was because there was an election a couple of weeks ago, we didn't want the decision before then, but nevertheless, we've not had the decision, and the people of Pendleton are very concerned. I'm sure Councillor Warburton is well aware of that. I'm sure they've spoken to him over the last couple of weeks. Certainly, I have had numerous phone calls from residents in Pendleton because of the help I've been trying to give them as a city councillor. And they are concerned, they don't know where they're up to, they're concerned where they're going to find their money from, to pay any increase in rent, if that is indeed what happens. They're already suffering, as we know, huge increases, even before the current round of increases, because of the cladding. They're facing huge expenditure in terms of their heating costs, and that's going to be added to, unfortunately, by the general increase that everybody is facing. So we really need to know quickly, and I hope that the Chair of Greater Prosperity can have some immediate discussions with the City Mayor to find out exactly what the City Mayor's decision is going to be regarding these rent increases. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greedo. As I understand it, the agenda for the 24th of May Cabinet has been published and it should have the answers to your questions. But let me bring in the City Mayor at this point.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Chair. I know this is a question to the Chair of Scrutiny, but you are absolutely right in highlighting that the papers have actually already been published for the council meeting on, the Cabinet meeting on the 24th. And as you know, the recommendation from the Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Greedo, was to refer it back to the decision-making body, which in this case was the Cabinet, in consultation obviously with myself, me being the decision maker and Cabinet obviously being privy. And that's ultimately made. So I am surprised that you're not aware that those papers have already been published, but they're published and you can access them online, and the Cabinet meeting will be taking place on the 24th when this decision will be reconsidered, which was the request of the Scrutiny Committee. So thanks for the question.
Moving on to item 16, we questions and comments for the discharge of functions of joint authorities outside bodies. I don't have any questions in advance. I'm not aware of any outstanding. Got anything present? No. Okay, I'm going to move on. Item 17, I've got an amendment somewhere that you gave me. Report on item 17, scheduled reports and board members, apologies that it would appear that the first one, Salford CVS Executive Committee, to be presented by Councillor August and Nelson, has not been sent. So, so I believe it will be circulated to members after this meeting, if you're all happy with that. You will also have before you received the Windsor and Albion Cooperative, presented by Councillor Gina Reynolds. Any questions, any comment on that report? No? Thank you. Well, I don't believe it. There you go. First time and last time in this seat, and it finished early. Amazing. So before you all leg it, I just remind you that that the mayoral installation, the meeting of council will take place. So please consider coming back here at 2 p.m. And with that, that concludes the business of this meeting, and I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you for putting up with me for all this time. Ha ha ha.